Hello and welcome to the Community Resilience Center's Round 2 Implementation Grant Application Components Overview. My name is Natalie McDonald and I am joined by my colleague Sam Stewart. We are Resilient Community Associate Planners on the CRC team. We hope that you find this video helpful as you get prepared to apply for the CRC grant. In today's video, we'll provide a brief overview of the CRC program's implementation grant. We'll move into a review of the implementation grant application components, then take a look at the application review and scoring process. And finally, we'll leave you with some next steps and resources. Before we begin, let's first go over some common acronyms we use for the CRC program. The first one is SGC, which stands for the Strategic Growth Council. The next is CRC, standing for Community Resilience Centers Program. PG stands for Planning Grant, and IG stands for Implementation Grant. TA stands for Technical Assistance, and CGS stands for Collaborative Governance Structure.
Before we get started, I'll cover a high-level overview of the CRC program. The Community Resilience Centers program funds the planning, development, construction, and upgrade of community resilience centers in California, along with services and programs to improve local resilience holistically. The CRC program has $55 million total for awards in Round 2 available. If you would like more details on the CRC program and how the program compares with the Transformative Climate Communities program, please review the CRC and TCC program overview video on YouTube. Let's now go over the concept of a Community Resilience Center, also known as a CRC. For our program, Community Resilience Center is a building that supports communities before, during, and after climate extremes and/or climate disasters. As California faces severe climate threats, residents may face challenges such as inconsistent power supply, lack of emergency response planning, and scarcity of essential resources, including food, shelter, water, and power. To support Californians and their communities, we're investing in local community resilience centers to provide a wide range of services to meet community needs. A successful resilience center is community-driven. It provides resilience building services such as first aid training workshops and utilizes resilient and sustainable design such as solar and battery storage.
Jump into a review of the implementation grant so that you can understand the purpose of this grant and what you might expect if awarded. So who is a CRC implementation grant for? Beyond eligibility, there are several factors that might make you a great fit for an implementation grant. One factor is that you are located in an area impacted by climate extremes and disasters, as a key CRC program objective is mitigating public health impacts of extreme heat and other emergencies exacerbated by climate change. Another is that you are ready or nearly ready to start construction. That is, you have already completed initial planning, design, and community engagement to prepare for construction or renovation to a specific CRC site. You have already considered any improvements to surrounding campus amenities, such as rain gardens or shade structures, and, if applicable, minor updates to partner sites, such as improving ADA accessibility or installing updated appliances. Finally, a key factor is that your organization or agency has capacity to administer capital improvement grants. This means that you have the necessary expertise, management capacity, and personnel within your organization, partnerships, or contracts to administer the grant and manage the project. Your team will need to closely monitor timelines and budgets, manage construction, and maintain clear communication with your community and your grant manager. You will be required to demonstrate this capacity in your application, which we'll touch on later. Now let's take a look at some of the core components of the implementation grants. CRC implementation grants have the following objectives. First, to create multi-benefit community-serving spaces that are resilient to climate hazards and emergencies. Next, to deliver year-round essential programs and services to communities, including during disasters, emergencies, and disruption events. To support community-driven partnerships and programming to increase climate resilience, expand economic opportunities, enhance social cohesion, and reduce health, environmental, and social inequities across California. And last but not least, to build, strengthen, and sustain local leadership and grassroots engagement in civic and community development and climate resilience awareness and activities. Projects funded by CRC balance both shorter-term emergency response needs with ongoing community needs and services by offering a combination of resources. For example, a CRC might provide heating and cooling centers and backup power for extreme weather, as well as year-round workforce development, basic needs services, and youth and senior programming. If this sounds like something that you are interested in providing, let's get into some more details on what to expect from a CRC implementation grant. CRC implementation grant awards are between $1 million and $10 million. They include a grant term that lasts 6 years, anticipated between fall 2027 and fall 2033. The grant term includes several phases. We are currently in the application phase. After applications close, they will be evaluated and scored, which will last until SGC makes awards in spring 2027. Then awarded grantees will go through a post-award consultation process, lasting 2 to 3 months. During this time, applicants will work with SGC staff to refine their grant agreement, deliverables, and budget to align with program requirements before grant execution. Once that grant is executed, grantees will enter a pre-development phase lasting approximately 9 months to 1 year, during which you'll work towards shovel readiness and complete several pre-development phase requirements. These pre-development requirements are outlined in detail in the grant guidelines, or in the CRC guidelines. Once grantees meet all pre-development requirements, they will transition into the implementation phase, lasting 4 years, during which they'll complete all capital improvements and deliverables. And finally, during the evaluation phase, grantees will work with partners and a technical assistance provider to evaluate and report on the project. You can see Appendix D, Program Requirements Overview, in the CRC Round 2 guidelines for a summary of program requirements at each phase of the grant. This is a great reference to give you an idea of the full scope of program requirements. So now let's take a look at eligible applicants.
The lead applicant must be based in California and be an eligible entity. Eligible entities include California Native American tribes, tribally owned nonprofits, nonprofit organizations, special districts, joint powers authorities, public or local publicly owned utilities, mutual water companies, or public agencies. Private shareholder corporations are not eligible to serve as a lead applicant or a funded partner. Please review Section 3.1 in the Round 2 guidelines for details about eligible applicants. Implementation grant applications must include at least 2 partners in addition to the lead applicant. At least 1 partner or the lead applicant must be a community-based organization and must be the CRC implementation grant. The lead applicant is a public agency. They must either provide a past formal resolution or documentation showing authority to bind the agency to the CRC application. Tribal applicants must provide a letter of authorization or a resolution approved by tribal council that authorizes the tribe or tribally owned nonprofit to apply for and receive program funds. See pages 62 and 63 in the guidelines for more information. Eligible applications representing tribal applicants, under-resourced communities, or previous SGC or LCI grantees will receive additional priority points. CRC will also consider geographic diversity and final award decisions. For more other priority points is outlined in Section 8 of the Round 2 guidelines. Now that you understand eligible applicants, we will talk about what makes a project area eligible. The project area must encompass the physical location of the CRC facility, the CRC site, campus amenities connected to the CRC facility, and partner sites and programs and services based out of the CRC facility or partner site. As we've discussed, the CRC facility is the focus of capital investments and must be publicly available year-round and during emergencies. See the guidelines section 3.3 and section 3.4 for additional information on project area and eligible facility types. Section 5.4 also lists the required functions and features of the CRC facility. The CRC site is the location of the CRC facility. Campus amenities included as part of the project area must either be on the same parcel or an adjoining parcel of the proposed CRC facility, or be within a 1 mile radius of the CRC facility and be along a route that is accessible by pedestrians, individuals using mobility devices, or by vehicle by the end of the grant term. So if you need to make improvements to make these accessible, it's okay to include that in your project proposal. In response to requests for allowing networked approach to developing CRCs in round 2, we are allowing the funding for programs minor improvements at partner sites. Partner sites are managed by the lead grantee or partners and offer programming and services that advance the resilience within the community. These are not considered CRCs and are not responsible for all CRC functions and features. They do not need to be within 1 mile of your CRC facility, but they must be accessible and offer services year-round. Partner sites are eligible for minor capital improvements, limited to 8% of the total award. It's important to note that awarded grantees planning improvements at partner sites will need to meet site control and readiness requirements for both the main CRC facility and sites.
Right. So now that we've covered some key eligibility considerations, we want to provide some additional information specifically about tribal applicants. California Native American tribes and tribal applicants are eligible for several modifications and special considerations throughout the implementation grant application process and throughout the grant term. To be eligible for tribal modifications and special considerations, the lead applicant must be a tribe or a tribally owned nonprofit. To learn more about tribal modifications and flexibility, please review Section 2, California Native American Tribes and Tribal Applications in the guidelines. Tribal applicants are prioritized for technical assistance during the application process, but must request application TA through the Technical Assistance Request Form by July 31st, 2026. And so to summarize the CRC Round 2 application timeline, our NOFA was released on May 29th, 2026, and CRC applications for both the planning and implementation grants opened on July 2nd. Planning grant applications will be due on September 4th, and implementation grant applications are due on September 25th. The Strategic Growth Council plans to announce the successful Round 2 grantees in spring of 2027. So now that we've reviewed the implementation grant program and what you can expect, let's learn how to apply. For all those interested in applying, all applications for CRC Round 2 are required to be submitted through Submittable, a free online application platform. Lead applicants will need to create a free Submittable account or sign in with Google or Facebook credentials to initiate the application. The organization that creates the submittable application will be the lead applicant, who can then invite partners to contribute to the application. On our website, we will post all the links to access the submittable platform, where you can download all application materials. Please note you can edit your application in the submittable platform until you are ready to submit it. If you have any technical issues with the submittable platform, please reach out directly to Submittable for assistance. And just a reminder that the implementation grant applications on Submittable will close on September 25th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. You will need to press that final submit button for us to receive your application. All right, so now we are going to go ahead and dive into additional detail about the implementation grant components. This slide contains a few helpful tips to think about before you get started. You can pause the video to read all tips on this slide. In general, we want to remind you that real people will be reading your applications who may have no prior knowledge of your community and neighborhood and will certainly have no familiarity with your project. Be clear, answer all parts of the question, and be sure to explain things that are not common knowledge. Tell us how your project aligns with this program and use data where possible. Of course, there is plenty of additional advice out there, so seek out support and pull on the expertise within your networks to prepare the best application possible. As you begin to develop your application materials, pay close attention to word and page limits listed in the instructions. Reviewers will not consider any work beyond the allotted word or page count. Follow all naming conventions listed in the instructions so that reviewers can easily find your work. Cite your sources when possible. Applicants should review the full application before starting and read every question. You do not need to follow the exact application order and can work on different sections simultaneously instead of going in the application order. As a reminder, you can save your progress and come back at a later date. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the application components.
Great. The application is broken into 3 parts. Part 1, lead application information, shows us you are eligible to apply. Part 2 is your project proposal. This section is the meat of your application. It paints the picture of your project and the issues it's addressing in your neighborhood. Part 3, project feasibility, covers the requirements that tell us you're ready to start this project and ready to receive funding. These 3 parts are made up of multiple sections. They will all be evaluated to determine the final awards. Now, let's take a closer look at each section. As I said, Part 1 is about showing your eligibility by answering questions and uploading documentation to show us who you are and providing points of contact. Part 2 and Part 3 both contain multiple sections. In Part 2, you will respond to sections 2 through 9 of the application, covering project overview, application workbook, project area, facility eligibility, and facility requirements, vision and objectives, community profile, prior community engagement and engagement plan, collaborative governance structure and partnerships, project impact, and implementation grant requirements. I will not go into detail on each of these sections, but we will provide a little more context on the most intensive sections. SGC will be provided a template for many of these sections. So Section 3, the application workbook. The application workbook is a critical element of your application. The workbook is an Excel template provided by SGC and contains your work plan and a line item budget broken down by grant phase. Additionally, you will use the workbook to report any leverage funding, such as other grant programs, donor funds, or other funding sources you will use to fund your project. Projects must have a funding gap of no more than 10% of total project costs. Your application workbook will be used throughout the grant term. It will inform the budget in your grant agreement and will be refined during the pre-development phase. Because the application workbook is so detailed, we will be providing a full video to explain and demonstrate how to use this tool. This will be posted to the CRC Round 2 webpage when it's available. As noted earlier, the CRC program is designed to improve neighborhood-level resilience for climate-related impacts. So activities funded by implementation grants must also address specific CRC strategies. Or each CRC implementation grant application must include activities which advanced at least 4 of the 7 CRC strategies. These strategies are modeled from other SGC programs, integrated with robust public comment, and can include both physical and infrastructure and programmatic elements. This approach is intended to provide communities with maximum flexibility to meet local priorities and needs. You can read more about implementation grant strategies in section 5.3 of the CRC Round 2 guidelines.
In section 6, you will be describing your local community and the community engagement efforts you have completed to date, as well as proposed activities during the grant term. You will indicate whether your community is a priority community, which includes disadvantaged or severely disadvantaged communities, and tribal, rural, or unincorporated communities. You can find more information on priority communities in section 1.5, section 8.4, and Appendix A, terms and definitions in the guidelines. Applicants should also identify and describe priority populations and other populations of focus within your project area. Priority populations include individuals with physical, developmental, or intellectual disabilities, individuals with chronic conditions or injuries, individuals with limited English proficiency, older adults, children, and pregnant people, low income, homeless, and/or transportation disadvantaged or public transit dependent people. The CRC must identify, work with, and intentionally serve the needs of these groups. You will describe your prior community engagement, both with narrative questions and a worksheet using an SGC provided template. You'll fill in your past engagement efforts to give us a picture of how your community has been involved in visioning, design, and planning for your CRC, as well as your organization's longstanding history of working with your community. You will also submit a community engagement plan to describe the future engagement efforts. The template is provided by SGC. The community engagement plan should be closely aligned with your work plan and budget. In section 7, collaborative governance agreement, the collaborative governance structure and agreement will govern the implementation of the grant term. The agreement describes the decision-making procedures, legal and financial agreements, roles and responsibilities of all parties, and public meeting procedures. Applicants design the structure and agreement to align with their needs. Tribal applicants across all grant types may request modifications to some of the collaborative governance requirements. For example, projects located on tribal land, requirements for public meetings and sharing of information should be interpreted to apply to that tribal community and not to the public beyond that community. Please refer to section 3.2, collaborative governance structure of the CRC Round 2 guidelines for an exhaustive list of all agreement requirements. To help applicants and grantees meet all CGS requirements, we created a collaborative governance agreement worksheet and a collaborative governance for tribes worksheet for tribal applicants without partners. Applicants will be required to download and fill out the worksheet to define the procedures, norms, and expectations for all parties involved in the grant. If an applicant is selected for award, they will turn the terms outlined in the worksheet into a formal collaborative governance agreement no more than 90 days after the contract execution. For Section 8, Project Impact, you will describe the climate hazards and impacts affecting your project area and community, as well as the existing factors of community resilience. Meaning, how does your neighborhood currently respond to disaster and build resilience, and how the proposed project will contribute to building resilience in your neighborhood. We will ask you to submit the best available local reports, quantitative or qualitative data, and/or community knowledge and histories to demonstrate the project impact. You can use multiple data sources, and there are many places you can source this information. Two options that you can use are the Vulnerable Communities Platform and CalAdapt. Both of these tools are linked in the application, and you can use these GIS tools to visualize data on several climate hazards, including extreme heat, flood risk, sea level rise, drought, and wildfire. For Section 9, you will demonstrate your plans for your CRC to meet the functions and features requirements of our program. Section 5.4, Implementation Grant Requirements of the Guidelines, beginning on page 43, describes the required functions and features for a community resilience center. We don't expect applicants to have all the functions and features at their current site, but the functions and features workbook helps us understand the current status of your CRC site and what installments, upgrades, or improvements are needed. The workbook is especially useful if the lead applicant will be meeting some of the required functions through offsite partnerships during emergency activation. And lastly, we recommend cross-referencing the functions and features with your work plan and budget to make sure any upgrades or new installments are accounted for. In addition, you will use SGC-provided templates to develop a draft CRC emergency plan and a draft CRC community resilience plan, which will outline how the facility will operate during emergencies and how the facility will provide year-round programming, respectively. The draft plans will serve as the foundation for final plans that you will complete during the grant term. These plans should pay specific attention to priority populations. Section 9 is the last section of Part 2 of the application. Again, there are a few items that we did not cover in detail, but the overall purpose of Part 2 is to show reviewers what it is that you are proposing with your project.
Great, and that takes us to Section 3, Project Feasibility. In sections 10 through 13, we are looking for applicants to show us their management capacity, meaning that they have processes and systems to manage a project of this scale. They meet the site control and readiness requirements that give them ability and authority to make capital improvements to the site, that they can acquire the required permits and will satisfy environmental requirements, including California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, requirements within 1 year of grant execution. And lastly, that they have a planned long-term financial feasibility for their CRC. For Section 10, Applicant Capacity, you will respond to narrative questions and provide documentation to demonstrate your organization or agency has sufficient capacity to manage the grant, including demonstrating dedicated staff, providing an organizational chart, and uploading letters of commitment from lead applicants and the partners who are leading capital project components. SGC will provide a template for the letter of commitment. There are various letters of commitment that serve different purposes throughout the application, including letters of commitment from relevant public agencies for project areas that span multiple jurisdictions, letters of commitment for leverage funding, letters of commitment for emergency activation coordination, and letters of commitment for site control. Where possible, one letter may serve several functions. However, it should be uploaded for each relevant application question. The template addresses all of these purposes. In addition, you will upload financial capacity documentation, including financial statements covering the last 3 years, your organizational budget, nonprofit documentation, and, if relevant, audit findings from the last 5 years. I will note there are tribal modifications in this section. California Native American tribes or tribally owned nonprofits are exempt from submitting any financial or management capacity information that violates their data sovereignty. A tribe that chooses not to submit the financial or management documentation described in this section must adequately demonstrate through other documentation that they have sufficient management and financial capacity to fulfill their proposed role in the CRC grant. Technical assistance providers will support tribal applicants in identifying and submitting alternative forms of documentation. In Section 11, you will respond to narrative questions about your site control and project feasibility. Site control refers to having the legal control of the project property, including the ability to develop and occupy the property. You will upload your site control documentation or provide details about your plan to acquire site control by the end of the pre-development phase. Review Appendix F, Site Control, which outlines the variations which satisfy the proof of site control. Additionally, you will complete a site control and land use analysis with an SGC provided template. This analysis will include reporting the zoning and land use requirements of the parcel the CRC is located on, as well as provide an overview of site conditions, consultation with emergency service providers, and overall site suitability for both year-round programming and emergency conditions. This section also includes a commitment from the lead applicant or partner for the CRC site's dedicated use as a community serving facility for a minimum of 15 years after project implementation is complete. In Section 12, Permitting and Environmental Compliance, you will provide a documentation of the project's environmental compliance, CEQA status, and ability to acquire necessary permits by the end of the grant term. For Section 13, long-term financial feasibility, you will respond to narrative questions about operations and maintenance and long-term funding sources. This section ensures grantees look beyond the CRC grant term through the 15-year dedicated use. Applicants may include the operational draft operations and maintenance plan in this section. This concludes the major components we want to highlight in Section 3.
We have covered a lot today. I do want to make it clear that this video does not address all required questions and documentation that you will need to complete at application. You must thoroughly review the application to ensure you have responded to all questions. Now, as you begin to build out these components that we've covered today, it's a great idea to keep in mind the application review and scoring process. We've provided the scoring criteria in Section 8 of the guidelines. Be sure to read those in detail to understand how many points you can receive for each section. The application review process will involve several steps. It will begin with a threshold review by SGC staff for eligibility and general completeness, which I'll explain more in depth in the next slide. Applications that pass program threshold review will have a full application review by SGC staff and an interagency review panel composed of professionals from multiple state agencies. After all scoring is complete, SGC staff will make proposals for Round 2 awards to the Council, who will vote to approve final awards. Let's take a closer look at threshold review. As I mentioned, the threshold review stage includes a general completeness check as well as a check for applicant and project area eligibility. Reviewers will check that applicants include required partners and all application requirements necessary for scoring, including initial reviews of narrative answers and application components for community engagement, collaborative governance, site control and readiness, applicant capacity, project financial feasibility, operations and maintenance plan, permitting and environmental compliance, long-term use, implementation grant requirements, and CRC strategies. If an application is missing any information, SGC will inform the lead applicant and they will have a brief window to resolve, about 72 hours. If an application remains incomplete or is unable to meet the program thresholds, their application will not proceed to the next step of the review process. For details on threshold requirements, please see Section 8.6 of the guidelines. And as mentioned, the full application review involves an interagency review panel who will compare application components against the scoring criteria outlined in the guidelines. They will cover vision and objectives, community profile, prior community engagement and engagement plan, collaborative governance structure and partnerships, and project impact. Projects who meet priority criteria will receive priority points. From those scored by the interagency review panel, the top scoring applicants will go on to be scored in project feasibility and will complete an interview with SGC staff. All of these will be combined into the final score, which is a possible 233 points. Again, you can review the guidelines for more details on scoring.
Great. Now that you have all of this information about application components, we're sure you're ready to get started. Let's quickly cover the next steps and resources you can use during the application process. Of course, you will want to read through the Round 2 guidelines and review the Round 2 materials on our webpage. If you are a tribal applicant, you are eligible for technical assistance and you can submit a technical assistance interest form until July 31st, 2026. We have also prepared an applicant preparation guide, which you can use as a checklist to gather documents and organize information before starting your application. Our team is also tracking frequently asked questions. We have a form where you can submit questions. Our team will review responses within 1 week unless the question has already been answered. We will be offering application office hours. We'll host 3 general office hours in July and August, during which you can ask questions and get live support. Visit our webpage and register for an office hour session. You must register in order to attend. We will also have a series of video resources available, including an application overview video that provides more background information on the CRC program and an application workbook overview coming soon.
With that, I want to thank you for watching this video. We have key dates outlined here. Big reminder that the planning grant application is due on September 4th and the implementation grant application is due September 25th. You can visit sgc.california.gov to learn more about our grant program, and you can scan the QR code to join the CRC email list to get program updates. Thank you so much and good luck with your applications.